Alright, let's see what we got here. When that's going to show up. I'm live here, okay, but there's always a delay by the time it shows up on my live camera versus the program that I used before it, yeah. Before it, you know, it's saying that YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain a smooth stream. So I don't know. It says that it's not receiving a strong enough stream to be able to be live. So but we'll see. We'll see what we can do. No. It has to do with the fact that I'm on a limited internet stream. Now it's there now, okay, but it may not be a good quality program here tonight on YouTube. So we'll have to watch for that. So yeah. Okay, let's see. We're down to a minute left. So we'll just do what we can. It's there, and we'll do what we can, and that's all that I can do. So yep. Yes, I am. I'm gonna talk about that a little bit tonight, and I'll probably talk about that with Jason because he's aware of it, and when we go into and with him. So, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, there's really strong reports on both sides. So, okay. Alrighty. Okay. So we're good. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Alrighty. So we're down to about 15 seconds here till show time. So, yeah. Good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt, and I'm here tonight live on the program on the Sedona Connection. I want to welcome everybody here to the program tonight. And yes, I am doing the live streaming on YouTube tonight, as well as carrying the program on Blog Talk Radio. Tonight, it's July 26th, and as you can see, well, yeah, I'm in a different location here tonight. I'm at a friend's home in Colorado Springs, and I will be here for another couple days, and then Saturday we have our workshop in Denver. And for those of you that may be interested still in attending there, I only have about 6 seats left, so you better get in really quickly because I basically have to cut it off. And then 2 weeks after that, August 12th, I'm going to be in Sedona, in my hometown, and we've only got about 15 seats left for Sedona. So if you're wanting to be there, you need to get your your reservations in fairly soon. You go to the website, thesedonaconnection.com, click on the workshop and registration tab. That takes you to the registration page. You can read through there and see what you want to do. So thank you, everybody. Also want to thank the patients that I wasn't with you last week. Probably around 35-40 minutes before airtime, we had this huge thunderstorm hit right in our home. It started out, it was 91 degrees outside, and it started with hail. And that went on for almost 5 minutes, these huge hailstones. The whole ground was white. It turned to rain. 10 minutes later, all the hail was gone, and the rain was flooding everywhere around our house. And I basically had to go outside, grab the sandbags, and put them in front of this one door to keep our house from flooding. And it wasn't like, okay, I've got times to go grab something. No, I had to go do it now. It was coming down so hard, so fast, and I got drenched. And I was drenched about 10 minutes before airtime, and I just said, I'm not going on the air tonight. because there wasn't, at that point in time, there wasn't anything that was urgent, anything that was new, and I just want to say thank you for understanding that. And but it's always an enjoyable time to be here on the program with you. Tonight, I am going to give you some really good updates about what's really happening out there in the currency world. Tonight, I'm going to open up and share some things and share more than stuff that I have never shared before. This is an accumulation of information and research I've been doing for over about the last 3 to 4 months. I confirmed this with a lot of my top quality sources. These are sources that have contacts inside the CIA, inside the FBI, inside the White House, and inside, the primary processing centers, and inside Reno, where we have the largest currency brokers in the world. And all of them are fairly much in agreement with what I'm going to bring to you tonight. This has been a constant shifting and changing scenario, and nothing ever remains absolutely permanent in this whole currency exchange. And if you notice, I use the term currency exchange. I don't use the term RV anymore. But before I get into tonight's program, I do want to go and I want to welcome Blanca. It's always nice to have you here on the air tonight. And how are you doing? Are you there? Hello, hello. There you are. Good. I can hear you just fine. I want to make sure that everybody out there can hear you just fine. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes. Those are you folks that have my those of you that have my phone for text message, just send me a really quick text if you can hear Blanca just fine. So go ahead and start sharing with us. Tell us about what's going on in Atlanta, Georgia this week. Okay, I'm having to make a couple changes here because I got a text that they can't hear you. But keep going, because I think what I need to do is kind of change my speakers around so that they will pick you up. And if those of you that sent me a text, if there's some changes now as I'm going through this, just let me know. Just for the next minute or two, just keep sending me text until we know I've got the right speaker connection for her. So yeah, go ahead. I can hear you over my headphones, but okay, hold on here. See, I can hear you over my headphones, but the problem is, see, I'm using two different programs and they don't. Okay, now it sounds good. You see, I'm using the YouTube live streaming as the primary program, but you're coming through on Blog Talk Radio. And sometimes the computer connections don't carry that sound over unless I set up the speakers correctly. And that's what I have to do. And I changed that around. And let's see here. Oh, just one more quick moment here. Okay, and okay, yep, you're good. You're good now. So, anything else that you want to share with us? Yes. They can hear you just fine now, Blanca. And so is there anything else that you want to share before we get into the program tonight? Yes, yeah, that'd be good. So, okay, I just want to move this just a little bit more, and that allows me to do a little bit more stuff with what we got going on here. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then, are we ready to go into the program tonight? All righty. Okay. So, folks, tonight, as I said, I'm going to share some things with you that's been building for about 3 to 4 months. I've been conferring this with my sources. We've been talking about it back and forth. Almost all of them are in either total or partial agreement with me. They understand that when we think through the issues, this begins to make common sense. First of all, I want to give an introduction to this. What I'm going to talk about is the two different worlds that we live in, what is called the shadow world and also what is called the conventional world of the information sources that come to us. And then from there, I'll go in and I'll expand on that a little bit. Then I'm going to talk about that most of the stuff that I talk about on this program comes from what is called the shadow world side. And this is the world that is not known out there to the public. It doesn't appear itself out there to the public. And all these currency exchange issues are not really public issues in the conventional world. It's never talked about in the conventional world. So, but first of all, the conventional world. That's the world that we would know that would be our known information sources. The news media programs, the radio media programs, your published media programs. It would go into government sources. You would have basically education sources. You would have all kinds of other entertainment sources. You have the known sources of media sources that bring us information that affect us in our everyday lives. And almost all of them report from what is called the conventional world. And you and I know that there is basically a conventional world of finances and there's a shadow world of finances. And the shadow world of finances doesn't come out into the media. It's not talked about in the news programs. It's not talked about in the business programs like Fox Business News and CNBC and Bloomberg Business News. They never talk about what's going on in our world of these currency and bond exchanges in this whole RVGCR business. They never ever talk about that. We know that there's a shadow world of government, that there's a government behind the government. And the shadow world is basically the world that operates in the shadows. It doesn't come out into the public. And quite often, the shadow world are the controllers over the conventional world. The shadow world controls the conventional world. In the shadow world, we have basically what we would call these cabal or Illuminati controllers. These extremely powerful, elite, extremely wealthy people that kind of run and control what goes on out there. They control the media. They control education. They control Hollywood, the entertainment industry. They control what comes to us in the education industry. They control the information that we receive. And they predominantly allow things in the conventional world to operate as they are, as long as that their things that pertain to them don't sneak out into the conventional world. If it does, it's usually immediately squashed, it's laid down, it's denied, and they'll go into all kinds of denial about it. One of the best examples of the conventional world versus the shadow world is the history of 9/11. Anybody that spends any time doing any type of research onto it will very easily be able to tell you that it was not 19 Arabs with box cutter knives that took planes into the towers and into the Pentagon. It's just common sense that all of those towers that dropped in New York City were controlled demolitions, and it was not a 757 Boeing plane that hit the Pentagon. That was almost an absolute impossibility. It was a missile, and it shows all the signs of a missile. For us to believe that it was 19 Arabs with box cutter knives that basically, took these 757 Boeing planes and flew them into the towers, we would have to say that all the laws of physics took a vacation that day. Because what we are seeing on the videos, the live videos, and how they're available all over out there on YouTube, you can watch them, it basically says that they had to basically totally violate the laws of physics that day. If you watch the planes going into the towers, you will notice they go in, they slice, they go inside, and even the nose comes out the other side. That is an absolute, complete physical impossibility. Because what you're saying is the whole fuselage of the airplane and the wings of the airplanes were stronger than the steel beams that hold up these 105, 106-story buildings. Those beams are made out of the strongest steel that is out there, that is available. And these planes are basically made of titanium and aluminum and soft metal, and they would have popped off and exploded as soon as they hit the side of the tower. And yet it penetrates in and goes all the way through. That means the nose of that plane was stronger than all those beams. Obviously, I can go on and on also about the issue of the Pentagon. The absolute physical evidence is so clear that it was a missile that hit the Pentagon. It was not a 757 Boeing plane. Now, why am I saying that? Because, see, that's the illustration of a conventional world. The conventional world will never, ever, they never report to us the truth about what happened on 9/11. It doesn't come out in the media. The politicians won't cover it. The media won't cover it. Journalists, investigators, private investigators, investigative journalists will not touch it. Why is it that the vast majority of them, they know the truth, but they're silenced and they can't talk about it? It's because of the powerful controllers that operate in the shadow world. And these powerful controllers are very, very powerful because they have the money to control what goes on in politics. They have the money to control what goes on, in the media circles, and basically the people that are in powerful positions there, they surrender to them. So you have these two worlds. You have the conventional world and you have the shadow world. But what's interesting to know that in the conventional world, it's not all just one way. We have a conventional government. Even from the conventional perspective, you're going to have what are called black hats, people that are not nice, they don't tell the truth, and you're going to have white hats, people that are good people wanting to do the right thing, doing an honest job in what they do in serving their jobs, whether it's in the government, whether it's in the media. They operate within the context that they are allowed to. Some of them operate as black hats, some of them operate as white hats. When you go over to the shadow world, what's really important there to know is that both of those are there as well. The shadow world is not just what we would call cabal-controlled black hats. There are people in the shadow world that know how the shadow world operates, and they are willing to tell the truth about that, and they're standing up for that. And they're beginning to stand up for it, except they can't do it totally because you have these extremely wealthy people that are basically in control of much of the conventional world. But what we're starting to see is the rise of the people within the shadow world that are very benevolent, that are very positive, and that are here to make a shift and change because they know that it's time to do that, and they know that they can. They understand and know that our world needs to go through a desperate shift and change in the world of finances. Now, and that's when we come down to these currencies and these bonds that are going to be paid out. Even though this information, and this is a subject that's predominantly within the shadow world, but within the shadow world there are public blog sites. And in my opinion, almost all of those blog sites are deliberate disinformation. Now, does that mean that the people that are reporting on them are black hats? No, I don't believe that. I believe the people that are reporting them think that they're doing an honest job. They think that they're doing good work, but they do not know and understand how they are controlled of the information that is being given to them. Because when you stop to think through the logistics, you run the numbers of the math, and you think this whole thing through, what they are reporting is almost impossible, again, to happen. It's an impossibility, just like those planes taking the towers down on 9/11. It just doesn't make sense. Folks, these currency exchanges that are going to come forward, the world of finances is not taking a vacation on that day to move into something that is so unreal and so unrealistic for it to ever happen. Now, what does that mean? We started on this issue with the dinar probably 10, 12, 14 years ago. And when it came out, there were reports that a lot of it was basically operating in what you would call a realistic and probable context. And very quietly people started buying this dinar thinking that the currency was going to revalue. Well, over the years it continued to grow and grow. And I didn't come into this about 4 years ago. I knew about it about 10 years ago, but I stayed away from it because I was always asking the question, where's the money coming from? Who's going to pay for all this? This isn't realistic about how they're going to come up with this money to do this. How are you going to take something that you paid basically, $25 for, and it's going to turn around and it's going to turn into, let's see, almost $90,000. That would be you paid $25 for a single 25,000 dinar note, and it's going to revalue at about $3.40, and so it's going to turn into 25,000 times $3.40. Who's coming up with that difference of that money? when about 4 years ago that I started into this, at this point they were talking about what was called the oil credits contracts that China had with Iraq. At that point in time, that seemed somewhat realistic. So I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I did. I went ahead and I bought some dinar, and I started doing my work. But it was shortly right after that, things they were waiting for to happen didn't happen. Hold on here. Ooh, thunder. We got thunder going on here in Colorado Springs right now. I was hearing the sound in my earphones. I was like, where's that coming from? And we got some big thunder going on out there. But as I went back to that, and I realized, you know, that was probable if there was a low volume of dinar out there. But shortly after I got involved in it, and I was doing like so many of us, where I was watching the reports of TNT Tony, and it says then the dinar went from $3 to $5 to $8 to $14 to $20, and all the way up to $36 per dinar. And that's when I realized this isn't real. There's no way they have that kind of money. I started reporting on this, and I was constantly and consistently saying, show me the money. Where are you going to get the money? Who's paying for this kind of stuff to take care of this? That's also when I had learned about how much money is really out there. And I was in touch with one of the clans of the Dragon family clans. And they began to tell me the reports of all this gold that was out there. And I had seen some of these reports before, but I had never done some good research and investigation work into it. And I continued doing my investigating. And that's when I began to find out about what I call the world above Wall Street. There is a world that is out there, in the shadow world of finances, where there is so much money that is out there, it's incomprehensible. Over the period of a couple of years, I made 4 trips to Hong Kong to meeting with these Dragon family clans. I made 2 trips to Taiwan to meet with some of the others. I have since been in touch with what I would call the real M1 and the real grandfather that's there in the Philippines, who they have this money. I've also told you that I have met face to face or talked on the phone with the people that are in charge of these 5 different largest trusts in the world. And they have this kind of money in their accounts, but they can't even write a check because they're not allowed to write a check. Because any one of these single trusts, if they could freely spend their money, they could literally take over the world with the type of money. I've learned where they got that money, where it came from, and how they were involved in what is called these off-market trading platforms. I had explained to me how these off-market trading platforms work and operate. They have a way of what is called legally making trades that Wall Street cannot enter into, but they are allowed to do that. It's because the shadow world allows them to do it, but there's only a very small group that gets to do it. When they first started opening up these off-market trading platforms to do this trading, this type of trading can basically double your money in 4 to 6 months. And that's on the far side. Some of them, sometimes they can even double it in just 2 to 4 weeks, depending upon market conditions. So you see, even when I use the term 4 to 6 months, if we use that as a frame of reference, and you start out with $10 million and you're doubling that money almost every 4 to 6 months, it doesn't take long that in 10 to 20 years you could have amassed literally quadrillions and quadrillions of dollars in your account. When that first started, these off-market trading platforms, they were only, this was back in the late 1930s, is how I understand it. They were only available to what is called the sovereigns, i.e. the countries and the Vatican. And then in the late 1950s, these off-market trading platforms opened up to some of the elite. There are a limited number of brokers that are allowed to do this. And yes, it is predominantly in the shadow world. And you have both the cabal, the black hat side, and you have the white hat side that are both allowed to be in there. And they both accumulate certain amounts of money to do what they do. Because they understand that the real world that's out there, the conventional world, is basically just what we would refer to as the masses being in slavery to what we call the controllers that are operating within the shadow world. Over the last 10 years, we've been having some economic situations developing where all of the G7 countries, the wealthiest countries in the world, they're all bankrupt beyond their ability to recover. There is no amount of taxation or economic stimulus that's going to allow them to recover to get out of debt. So they've been operating in basically a debt status, printing up what we call fiat currency money, or operating in a debt status of where they could just spend whatever it is they wanted to, not be accountable for how much that they were spending. And this has gotten to the point where it's out of control. And when you have all 7 of the countries in that condition, we know that we're basically heading for a complete economic catastrophe. So the white hats in the shadow world, they know that. And they know that there had to be something to be done that was going to basically fix that problem to prevent us from going into a global situation that was like the Great Depression in the 1930s, but it would be 5 to 10 times worse. It would be so bad there almost would be almost no money, and finances would just totally fall apart. And that's just not my opinion. You're now starting to see that economic experts are coming out and they are saying that on the finance programs like CNBC and Fox Business News. You're seeing these reports coming out and they're saying this is a cliff that we're headed for. There has to be a change. And so in that, if that continues to go to where it hits its what's called its breaking point, there's one of two things that's going to happen. Number one, they're going to be bankrupt and they have no money, which means the government has no money to pay for its government services. And then people basically then go into survival mode to be able just to survive, because you're going to find no money. That means nothing for Social Security. You're going to find nothing for all the government services and the people that they have. Okay? The other option is to basically that we would go into a complete hyperinflation. That was similar to what Germany went into just prior to World War II. In the stories where, they would have basically a wheelbarrow full of money to go in and buy their groceries. And that creates very, very serious poverty situations when we have that type of inflation. To stop that, the white hats in the shadow world are going to release these vast sums that they have been holding on for sometimes decades, sometimes hundreds of years, and even in some cases thousands of years, because they know it's time to do that, because we have never been into this great of a coming situation where the whole world could fall apart. And so they've been setting up these exchanges, these bond exchanges and these currency exchanges. Now, that's the white hat side of it. On the black hat side, what happened is, knowing that this was going to be coming, they started overprinting and overselling the dinar. When we started in this scenario 10 years ago, dinar was in a very realistic position. But you have to remember, the dinar is a currency that is not exchangeable on the open foreign exchange market. What does that mean? The only place that it has real value is inside the country of Iraq. You have those dinar outside of the country of Iraq, you can't buy anything with it anywhere, because no merchants will accept it and no banks will accept it. If anybody's accepting it from you, it's because they think that they're going to be able to trade it and get a higher sum through what we would call the revalue. And the revalue is going to be the revaluation of the dinar. That's what that term predominantly refers to. When I first started in this, there was a realistic amount of dinar that was out there. And I want to tell you what I have since found out, and this comes from my various sources. And these are real hard, real world, verifiable, provable data and information. I've had the opportunity to be what is called a middle broker on some very large private exchanges. These were people that were holding 5,000, 100,000, even up to 500,000 boxes of dinar. Boxes. They had to submit to me what were called client information sheets, which means was the total complete background. We had to do a compliance check on them, which means we basically would run a criminal access check on them to make sure they were legitimate. They had to prove to us where they got these currencies, and that it was legitimate and how they paid for it, and that everything was above board in how they obtained them and what was going to be the purpose for them, and then using their funds to be able to, let's just say there was one gentleman that had 500,000 boxes of dinar. Inside each box was 40,000 of those 25,000 dinar notes, which means each box held 1 billion dinar. 1 billion. This one gentleman that I told you about, we basically turned him down because we found it was a front for basically money laundering, drug money from overseas. And so we said we don't want anything to do with it, we wouldn't touch it. But I'm giving this to you as an illustration. I also had 3 other potential clients as well that had come to me, and at the end of the day, you know, they didn't really work through, because these are the ones that are at the end of the day when everything's about ready to be paid, they're still looking for a buyer. Well, those are the stragglers. And there's a reason that they're straggling if they still haven't found a buyer, and they have that type of a volume by this time. But just think that through. Here's what we've been able to verify from myself and from other legitimate brokers who have had what they call the full CIS package from the clients. We know of over 600 million boxes of dinar that is out there. Provable through pictures. We know the warehouses where they are stored in the various countries around the world. We know how they got there. We know that these boxes, they are sealed, and on the outside there's a barcode, a scan code, and a PIN code that describes where it came from. And all of these boxes say that they are certified by the Central Bank of Iraq. Now you got to be talking about let's just round the number, say 500 million boxes. Let's run this scenario. Let's say, how long does it take to print 40,000 of these dinar notes? Print them, cut them, band them, box them, and then seal it with the you know, the codes on the outside. How long do you think it takes to do that? Even if I want to be really magical or crazy, let's just use a box per minute. 1 box per minute. So you've got a printing press that's putting out 1 box per minute of the volume I just told you, which is pretty unrealistic to do all of that in just 1 minute. Okay? 1 box a minute, that's 60 boxes an hour. Times 24, you're now running at just under 1,500 boxes a day. Times 365, you're now looking at a little over 500,000 boxes per year. And I'm going to use rounded numbers. Okay? Let's do that for 10 years. Then we've got 5 million. So you've got basically 1 printing press by running a box a minute, unstopping for 10 years, no stopping. They've only put out 500 million. No, they've only put out 5 million boxes. And we know there's over 500 million out there. Were there that many printing presses running that much? These boxes had instructions on them to not be opened until they were at the end buyer, the person who was going to pay, you know, the seller for those boxes. Here's the reports. We have 3 separate reports from people that do not even know each other. These boxes have been opened up, and on the inside was nothing but newspaper. When you look at the volume of boxes that we put out, if we just used an estimation that half of these boxes are filled with newspaper, because it was almost impossible to print up that many boxes over a 10-year period of time, you'd have to have almost 100 printing presses going on around the world doing 1 box per minute to be able to produce the 500 million boxes that are out there that we know of. That means the vast majority of all these boxes are probably fraud. They're probably fraud. And yet they are certified by the Central Bank of Iraq. Now what does that tell us, folks? If what I just told you is correct, that means the Central Bank of Iraq has been involved in the biggest fraudulent money scheme ever in the history of the human race. Because see, these boxes at retail value of today's purchasing price, they sell for about $1 million each. And they did 500 million of these. Who would do that? We're finding out that most of these were produced during the Maliki regime. And that is something Maliki, the very corrupt Prime Minister of Iraq, would probably do. Do we really know whether or not the Central Bank of Iraq actually did those? We don't. It could have been that Maliki had basically hired people to produce these boxes and produce these barcodes, pin codes, scan codes, and made them look real when they really didn't. It really didn't come from the Central Bank of Iraq. But here's what you've got. If my scenario is correct, You have a man that made billions of dollars fraudulently in an illegal manner, and a lot of that stuff was sold to countries, sold to sovereigns, sold to very wealthy and elite people. These people are going to be really pissed off if they open their boxes and find out there's nothing but newspapers on the inside for what they paid. What does that also tell us now when it comes down to our level? What happened was there was such a demand to buy this dinar that they were either printing it up as fast as they could to sell it, knowing that it would never get exchanged. Let's take half that amount, 250 million boxes that are out there that could be legitimate. Who's coming up with the money to pay for 250 million boxes of dinar? Now, sometimes this dinar was put out there, in boxes, or was put out there in loose form, and it went through the brokers. There is one broker that we know was public. They were raided by the FBI and they were shut down, and it was sterling currency. And there's a public report about how much money they made, how much they were grossing in their business for over 10 years, and how much profit they were making for over 10 years. They were making between $30 and $40 million a year profit just selling dinar and the reserves with the dinar currencies. So you see, folks, what we've seen is when you've got this kind of money with this kind of a possibility, you had to know there was going to rise up a very corrupt and fraudulent scheme to be able to take this money from people who are willing to buy it. And I was one of those. And a lot of you were that as well. We do know in the shadow world, on the white hat side, that yes, there are legitimate brokers who have taken in this dinar, and they have legitimate contracts that have been approved by the U.S. government. Now, in the last couple of weeks, I talked about the 4 different levels of the people that are involved in this currency exchange process. First is aggregators at the very bottom level. I would be considered an aggregator. We collect currencies from others. We then take that and we set up legal contracts. And in my case, you would have a legal contract with me between us that you had turned your currencies over to me so that you would have a recourse financially and even legally if I didn't produce or give you your currencies back or produce, any type of a return for you. You would have the ability to basically take me to court if I didn't produce. Aggregators, the good aggregators, that's what we do. We have a legal contract. We require you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. You have to fill out the client information sheet. All of that is done when you turn in your currencies to us. We do security background checks on you as we are required to do that. That's the first step. After that, someone like me who is an aggregator, we go to a broker. The brokers are the big boys. These are the guys that they either sometimes are aggregating themselves or they are collecting from the aggregators. And as I have told you, I am in touch with the individual that is the largest currency broker in the world. There are a number of legitimate currency brokers that are out there. And these brokers have contracts then with the buyers or the funders. So you got aggregators, you got brokers, and you got buyers. The buyers are the ones that have the very, very, very large sums of money. Remember I told you about these 5 trusts that have so much money that they can't even, they could take over the world if they could freely spend it. These are the primary sources of these types of funds of the buyers come from 2 sources. The dragon families, the elders, the grandfathers, whatever term you want to apply to them, the ones that are legitimate. And then you have some of the legitimate contracts of the governments that are providing this as well. Both of them, over decades, have accumulated these funds through the off-market trading platform. And that's what's paying for us in our currencies. So now, as I said, you've got aggregators, buyers, and brokers. But above that, you have what I call the coordinators. And the coordinators are, in essence, the governments. Because you see, the United States government is not going to allow an unlimited amount of money to come into this country. They have to regulate the volume flow. Because if they allow too much money to come into the country that is spendable, it creates hyperinflation. And that is a national security risk issue. If our economy falls apart because we have too much money to spend of hyperinflation, It puts us in a weak position with other countries, and it puts us at a national security risk. That is why it's common sense this currency flow is going to be controlled by the governments. You know, there's this phrase called the golden rule. We know what that is. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And then there's the other golden rule. Those who have the gold set the rules. Except here's what I found out. There are the coordinators, i.e. the big guns, because the big guns control those who have the gold. See, so at the end of the day, it's not the elders, the grandfathers, or the dragon families who's going to say how much of this money is going to get out there. It's those who have the big guns, i.e. the governments. At the end of the day, they are the ones who have the say. At the end of the day, what I call the shadow world government operators are going to be the ones who are going to control how much money is going to be released in both currencies and bonds. You rarely hear about the bonds. I know about the bond worlds because I talk to brokers who broker bonds, and they're very good at what they do, and they're very, very knowledgeable people in what is called the bond broker world. The bond market is bigger than the currency market. So if you're limiting how much money you're going to allow to be released, and the bond market never gets talked about either hardly by me because I don't specialize in bonds. I specialize in currencies. I don't deal with bonds. But there's a bond market out there that's humongous, horrendous, that's going to get paid out. And there's currencies that are going to get paid out. And that's why I have been saying, and I firmly believe in this, and all of my sources and colleagues I discuss this with, they agree with me. If you are not in a private exchange that has not been approved by the U.S. Treasury, there's a very high probability, 90 to 95% probability, you aren't going to get anything. Nothing. Why? Because the government is overseeing how much money is flowing. So they have to approve the contracts so they know what the volume is going to be. Now, as it's been explained to me, these coordinators, they don't control these exchanges, but they oversee them to regulate the volume. And so you have to be approved by them. And if you're not approved by them, it ain't going to happen for you folks. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. Could things possibly change? Yes, they could. But here's the reality. We live in a real world, a physical world, a tangible world where there's where there's real money, and they're only going to allow a limited amount to be put out. And that's what I've been trying to explain to you today. What I've been trying to tell you is there has been so much dinar that has been so overprinted, and the people have bought it, and there are these false, corrupt, fraud printers and boxers of dinar that have made billions of dollars, and none of that is ever going to get exchanged. It was in the early spring, I was aware of some of my colleagues that were turning in and had aggregated loose dinar in the first round, and these were approved by the government authorities, and that was in probably around March. And 2 months later, there was a very, very strong, powerful broker who wanted to basically turn in what's called loose dinar, not box dinar, in the scores of billions of dinar. And the funding sources said, no, we're not taking any more dinar. Why? Number one, the fraud that's starting to come out. Number two, the overprinting and the massive amount of counterfeit dinar that is out there. Number three, they can't get authorized by the coordinators because they've already reached their limit of what they were going to pay for dinar. And this, my friends, is what I'm here to tell you. There are literally thousands and thousands of you that are going to listen to this program, and you are still holding hundreds of thousands and millions of dinar. And I'm here to tell you, there's a probability of about 85 to 90% you aren't going to get paid. You aren't going to get a penny for them, because all the money that is going to go to the dinar has already been committed. It's already out there and it's already committed, and they aren't going to release anymore. Now, what about then, if you're not going to get it through the private exchanges, what about this revalue? Well, if there is a currency revaluation, that's up to the individual country. And I would come back and say, if you now know there's over 200 million boxes of dinar out there, where's Iraq going to come up with the hundreds of quadrillions of dollars to pay for that? They don't have that. Don't tell me about the oil in the ground and the oil credit contracts, because there's only $10 trillion of oil in the ground in Iraq, and $10 trillion of oil isn't going to pay for 250 million boxes of dinar that is going to be retail out, even if it's only $3 a dinar and a revalue, it's going to pay for the hundreds of quadrillions of dollars to pay for that. You see, folks, that ain't going to happen. Secondly, Iraq has absolutely no obligation whatsoever to buy that dinar back from you. Why? Because it's not a currency that is tradable on the open foreign exchange market. The only place that currency has any value is inside the country of Iraq. And there is so much that is out there that has been overprinted. There's no way they could afford to do that. They don't have to. They can simply walk away and say, you made a calculated risk investment, on speculative risk investment when you bought that dinar. You were believing that somehow it was going to be revalued, and you didn't check your sources. You didn't find out who has the money to pay for it, how much is out there, where is it going to come from, and who's going to do that for you. You never verified any of that information. And do you think that we're going to buy all this back? Why would they do it? Why would Iraq sell something for $25 and then buy it back for $90? I'm using that. Let's take a single 25,000 dinar note. It rounded out, it cost about $25. That's what they get for it. So they'll receive $25, and then if you, let's say the dinar revalues it where it was, before the Iraqi war, around $3.50. That means they're going to receive 25 and then pay out 90. What kind of an investment is that for them? That's a money loser. Where are they getting all the money? Why are they doing that? You see, they can't do that. They don't have the money to do that, and any country that did that would be absolutely insane. So what are the sources of the money? The sources of the money are those two primary sources that I talked about. Maybe Iraq was out there, trading in the off-market trading platforms, but they're going to use that money for themselves. They're not going to give it away to make you be rich. Folks, when you start putting together everything that I've said here, and I hope you've listened to this very closely, the dinar market is done. For all practical purposes, it's done. If you're going to hold on to your dinar, you are holding on to about a 10% probability that you're going to get something for it. And you aren't going to get your $3.50. You might possibly be able to ship it to Iraq, and if Iraq prints up a new currency and drops to 3 zeros, you might get about $90 for something that you paid $25 for, but it ain't going to happen out here, folks. They don't have any reason to do that. The only reason they would have to do that is for their own people inside their own country. This is the realistic reality of what's out there. And if some of you out there don't like what I have to say here, then prove me wrong. Show me wrong. Show me who's got the money, where's the money going to come from, what brokers and buyers are going to buy it from you, and if you're believing in the 800 numbers, where are the banks going to get the money to pay for this, to give you that money for that? And where are these 50 to 100,000 employees in all these 12,000 processing centers that they even now say that they're on lockdown? And who's paying them to sit there on lockdown doing absolutely nothing? It's absolutely crazy, folks. That is crazy. Believing that you're going to get an 800 number and you're going to be able to go into a bank-controlled processing center and you're going to take something that you paid $25 for and get, a $90,000 for it? That's like believing it was 19 Arabs with box cutter knives that took down the World Trade Center towers and the Pentagon. And that's my opinion. And I've got a lot of backup on that. I've stated this before. The real people with the real money never, ever, ever come out into the public and into the open to talk about this shadow world currency exchange. A revaluation? I don't think there's going to be what we would consider a revaluation. Where's the money going to come from? Who's going to pay for it? Because we're at a point now to revalue the global currencies. The volume of money that is needed is just astronomical. Hundreds of quadrillions of dollars. A global currency reset, it might happen over a period in the process of time. I don't really think it's going to happen. Is because of the fact who's going to come up with the money. Who's going to coordinate that? To carry those out, it means the countries have to have been coordinating this in the shadow world, behind the scenes, without anybody finding out about it. You know what? If the shadow world issues are real, and they have a real opportunity for people to become very wealthy, you better believe it's not going to be kept a secret. It will leak out. That information always, always, always leaks out. And the next thing you know, you've got what I call real people, credible people, who are lining up to do it and running with it. Now, I am not saying that there are not people in round one who have been able to turn in their currencies and they have already been approved. I absolutely believe that, and I know that. I'm on that list. I have 4 different contracts that are absolutely solid, and I know who's doing it, and I know where the money is coming from. But what I'm saying is, if you have not already turned in your currency to a broker that has been approved by Treasury, you're not going to get anything with your dinar. Let's make a shift now over and talk about the ZIM. Early on, hardly anybody talked about the ZIM. The ZIM, all of my sources, and I've said this many, many times, it was a limited currency for a limited period of time. It did not have an unlimited amount of money that was to be paid out for it. Yes, the ZIMs that have already been collected and have been approved by the coordinators, i.e. the governments, they're operating kind of as a bond because of the resources that Zimbabwe has underground. Zimbabwe is probably the most rich resource country in the world underground, with the resources that are underground. But when this started becoming popular, Mugabe, or whatever his name is, he's the very, very corrupt prime minister or president of Zimbabwe. He's almost 90 years old. That guy would steal your heart, cut your heart out, and take your money in a heartbeat. He's been approving the printing up of literally truckloads and plane loads of ZIM to go out and sell it, knowing that he would never ever pay it out. And that's what's been happening. You've been having these brokers that are selling it, and what they did when the dinar started fading out, they moved over to the ZIM. And if you notice, if you go to the blog sites, it's the dinar and the ZIM that they talk about the most. And which is the one they don't talk about? The dong. And all of my sources, from brokers to buyers to coordinators, are saying the dong is good. And that's common sense to me, that they won't talk about the one that is good because they don't want too much of it to be bought. Because see, of those 3 currencies, the dong is the only one that is tradable on the open foreign exchange markets, which means it has a real world value outside of its home country. You can take your dong down to the bank and you can exchange it at the current exchange rate and get US dollars for it. It's the only one. And because of that, it's limited in how much that has been printed. It's limited in how much is going to be released and be sold. And it's controlled about how much that they're talking about it and how much what they're really to release it. In the real currency world and in the real bond world, exchange world, the real people with the real money never, ever, ever come out into the public and talk about it. If they did, they'd probably be dead. Now, why am I here talking about this? I'm not going to go into the details. All I know is what I can say is the coordinators allow me to do this because they do want the truth to be out there, open and available to the public. But yet it is the public's responsibility to find it. It's the public's responsibility to do their homework. It's the public's responsibility to find out what they can exchange and get paid on and what they will not be paid on. But they do need, for their own security reasons, to be able to let somebody do what I'm doing. I have been told by very high brokers, and even those that are in touch with the coordinators, that I'm the only one that they allow to come out and really tell this full story. So folks, there it is. That is the story that is behind the currencies. That is the story of what is really going on out there. And I have said, you need to make your decision what you want to do. If you want to hang on to your dinar and you want to believe that there's a 10% probability that you'll be able to exchange it with an 800 number, that's your choice. I'm here to tell you, the real people with the real money and the real brokers and the real buyers and the real coordinators, they're done. They're not buying. They're not taking in any more dinar for the reasons I've been talking about for about the last 40, 45 minutes. I believe that. That's your choice. What I would do, I will tell you what I would do. I would sell it. When I say that there are no more buyers, what I'm saying is there are no more buyers in the exchange world. There are brokers out there that will buy your dinar back from you at a loss to you. They will buy it back at less than what you paid for it. There might be some individual buyers out there who will buy it from you or develop a contract with you because they think that they're going to be able to exchange it. My information says, sorry, they're out of luck. That's a no-go. I was told by a classified source almost 1.5 to 2 months ago that the coordinators had put out a cease and desist order to the buyers to quit buying dinar. Quit buying it. They had a cease and desist order. Those that they were in contract with, they had a cease and desist order. But somebody else may still want to believe it because that's their choice. But you're taking the risk. That's your risk. What I would do, I'd sell it. I'd sell it. There are brokers that are online. People do what they want to do. And, you can do what you want to do. If you just want to take the straight loss and not do anything with it, that's your choice. If you want to sell it to somebody who believes that they can still get something for it, that's your choice. Don't ask me where it is. Use Google, folks. If you go on Google and you put in buy or sell dinar, you will find literally, well over 8 to 10 different places that will buy your dinar from you. Expect the fact that they're going to buy it at a loss. What I would do, I would take that money and then I would go and buy dong with it. 2 reasons why. All of the contracts that I am aware of, the rate of return on the dong is almost 4 to 5 times more than what you're going to get from your dinar. Let me give you an illustration. It cost you 13 times more US dollars to buy 1 million dinar than it does 1 million dong. And the dinar is not trading on those contracts, first round contracts that are already established. It's not trading at 13 times more. It's trading at about 4 to 5 times more. Which means you could take your dinar, just do the math. Just do the math. You could take your dinar, you could sell it at a 50% loss, buy dong with it, and you would still come out with more than twice the amount of money than you would be with your dinar if you even got paid for it. Okay? Hold on here just really quick. Okay. There's different places out there that you can go to get that. I'd get rid of my Zim, I'd get rid of my dinar, and I would buy dong. Because that's the one that the coordinators are still going to buy. That's the one that we have been able to turn it in with. Okay? And if nothing happens and all of this falls apart, you can take your dong back and get your money back at the bank. And the only thing that you would lose is basically the exchange rate, the buy and sell exchange rate. So where does that put us? I have a number of good sources. I have to be very careful about what I can say. And I know the reports have come out on this before. And when we came out with these reports before that, we heard that the paymasters were receiving the money and the money was in their bank accounts. We later found out it was deliberate lies and disinformation that was given to us, and I came back and I told you that it was misinformation. And I have been very, very careful since then to not say anything that I know about anything on the time. But here's what I know. The coordinators from 3 different sources are saying it's day to day. We have one coordinator. Let me go back. We have one broker that I'm aware of that has been told, tell your paymaster, get ready, the money's ready to come. Those of us that I talk with, we have said it's never been this close before. It's never been this strong. All of us have signed non-disclosure agreements. We cannot give you any more money than that, other than the fact that we can say that round 1 is pretty much right at the doorstep. It was a couple of weeks ago that I shared with you one of the reasons why we've had these delays. And the biggest one, because of the fraud and the corruption in the banking industry, that they were going to basically sell all of these currencies, let us put all of our money in our bank accounts, and then they were going to create a coordinated bail-in and steal all the money from us. Because, see, they don't want us receiving this money. In this shadow world, there are benevolent white hats that want us to be a part of restructuring the global finances. And yet there are black hats that don't want us to receive a dime. And they want to keep the power and control for all of it of themselves. This whole thing about the currency and bond exchanges goes back to the original Bretton Woods Agreement in the early 1940s. It was always in the what I call the shadow world, the white hats. It was their intention to basically neutralize global economies. When you neutralize global economies, you pretty much eliminate all the wars and the conflict that is there. And the black hats came in, controlled, stole the scenario of the Bretton Woods Agreement. They did it again with President Kennedy and President Sukarno in the early 1960s when they wanted to do it there. And they have since realized if they were going to carry this out, they had to basically get control of the financial empire of the shadow world of the black hats. And they've been working on that for more than 20 to 30 years, and we're there now. We're right at the doorstep. We're literally, this process could start any day. One of the things that I teach in the workshops is this is a process that's going to be ongoing for a number of years. Those of us that get to be involved in the round 1 and round 2 currency exchanges, we're just basically the trailblazers, the front runners of the shift and change that's going to come to our world. You hear reports thinking that the cabal has been defeated and they're going away. Folks, they're not going away. I'm sorry. They just don't roll up their tent and go away. And they haven't been killed, and they haven't been wiped out, and they haven't been arrested. A few of them have. But the vast majority, that corruption is so deep, so many layers deep, it takes a while before you undo that. And part of the undoing that is releasing some of these funds on a step-by-step basis, because that neutralizes their power of the haves and the have-nots. And that's part of the reason for this coming out. So, well, I think I've covered it. And what I wanted to cover tonight, let me go over my notes to make sure that I covered everything I wanted to say about the currency exchange. I think the thing that I have come to understand is it isn't anywhere near what you're seeing or hearing or reading on the blog sites. If you want to continue to believe that, that's your choice. All I know is that I've got real people, real tangible bankers, real tangible government coordinators who are running the show that I'm in contact with, either directly or secondhand. And this is the reports that myself and my sources that we coordinate with, this is what we come down to. So, okay, with that, Blanca, share your thoughts with us as I drink some water. I hear you just fine. I hear you just fine, and everybody else does too. Yes, you're good. I hear you just fine, everybody else hears you just fine. Yes, it is. Yep, it is. It Yeah, go ahead. I'm just readjusting the microphone. It says that they can't hear you. I know. Well, Blanca, I don't know what's changed, but people are saying that they can't hear you, and but yeah, they could hear you earlier at the beginning of the program. So I don't know what changed here or what's going on, huh? So, but you know what? Let's just keep going. If these issues get extremely urgent, they can always go back, because this will show up on the recording, the recorded version. But you know, man, I'm doing what I can. Yeah. Huh. Let me just keep going. Go ahead and keep going. I'll see what I can do here. Oh, wait a minute. Now, but you know what? Hold on. You know, Jason just texted me and says that he can hear her just fine. And another one says that you're fine. I don't know why some can't hear you and some can, but some can't. Okay. That means my system's working. And yeah. Yes. Let me clarify also about the people on my list for round 2. Now, I can only tell you what is a probability, and the probability is very, very strong that the people on my list will get paid in a round 2. But they're only going to be able to exchange dong. There will be no dinar or no zim that will be exchanged. It will be just dong. The rates will be much lower, and I am not free to go into the details of why, other than I can say that there are coordinators out there that are behind that, and they understand that it's in their best interest to make sure the people on my list are able to turn in their dong. And so there will be a round 2. I don't know if anybody else is going to get to exchange currencies after round 1 is done. It's back to remember, there's a limited amount of money that's going to be released, and I have no control if you got in round 1 or not. There's 20, 30,000 people that are involved in round 1. I don't know those numbers because I don't know who all the brokers and who all the buyers are. I do know the ones I'm in touch with are right at the very top. But it's been very clear there's a limited amount of money. But yet they have also planned, and they know what would probably come through with the people that are on my list for a round 2, and there's a reason why they're allowing that to happen. Is it guaranteed? No, it is not. Is it highly probable? Yes, it is. But I can pretty much tell you, don't plan on that you're going to be able to exchange any dinar or zim with me. Those are done. It will only be dong and dong only. So, okay. Yeah. Yes, and anybody, yes, and anybody in the world can come and sign up on my list. I do not restrict. All you have to do is go to my website and click on the Humanitarian Exchange link, sign up, and fill out the form, and you're on the list. Now, I do not collect anything. I do not want any paperwork. I do not want any of your information. I don't want anything until it's time to proceed. When it's time to proceed, what I will do, I will send out an email notice, an advance notice to everybody that is, on my round 2 list. And anybody in the world can sign up to be on that. And I will let you know what's going to happen. I will let you know that it's probably going to be just the dong. That's the only thing that you're going to be able to exchange. I will operate as an aggregator. You and I will have a signed contract with each other, which gives you legal recourse to me if I don't fulfill my promise, as I say, or I don't fulfill my obligation, or I don't give you your currency back. And yes, you will have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. You will have to sign the contract. You will have to fill out the client information sheet, and a few other things. That's all required. That's all required. Don't think that you're going to get by by not being able to do that. That will be required. And what I will do is that I will take that through on a step-by-step basis of how we process everybody. But anybody in the world can come to my website and sign up. So it's their choice. Yeah. Yep. There is a possibility that when funding for when funding for round 1 comes out, I might have to shut the list off. I will definitely, when I get paid, I will make a demarcation date of before I was paid and after I was paid, because if I have to make a division in the list, it will be the first priority will be those that were signed up before I was paid. So, which means if you're going to be a latecomer and you heard, oh, Dave got paid and they're all getting paid, I better get on his list. Well, you're the straggler, okay? And if there's going to be a limit that they're going to put on it, you're on the limit. You're on the backside of that. So, but my list is not closed. It is open now, and it stays open until I have the appropriate authorities tell me to shut it down. So, okay. Sure it is. You see, but the thing is, Blanca, they're believing what they're reading on the blog sites that I've been telling you for a couple years. Their information is so crazy it's hard to believe. But they're still believing it. And part of it is they're believing it because they don't have any other place to go. They don't know of anything else. This is all that they know. So they want to believe it because they want to believe that this could possibly be real. And I'm here to tell you there are realistic things about this, and there are just plain flat out crazy things about this process that is not going to happen. And you have an opportunity to go to an alternate source if you want to listen to this and sign up here. If you don't, that's your choice. But all I can say is, when we get paid and you don't come screaming and crying because you had your opportunity. Yeah. Well, yes, you know, well, you know, folks, it's at the workshops that you have unlimited opportunity to ask myself and everybody else their questions. And there's sometimes there's other people that come in there that are very knowledgeable in this process, and they do attend the workshops, and they're available also. I'm not at liberty to give out any of those names, but you know, we had an example at the Louisville workshop of an individual who's very, very deeply involved in what you'd call the, you know, the shadow world, and he's been in it for over 30 years, and he's one of my great resources that I have. And I mean, I can't share his name, but see, these type of people show up, so you get access to more than just me. You get access to other people, and we have lots of Q&A sessions for each other. And believe me, folks, this is not about me making money doing these workshops. If my intention was to make a good money, I'm the most stupid, dumbest promoter I've ever met. Because, I mean, I could charge more, I could sell books, I could do all kinds of stuff. I don't. I let anybody come that wants to come. I have scholarship rates available for those that can't afford the full rate that is there. You know, these newsletters are free, these videos are free. You know, anybody can send me emails and ask questions. The radio programs are free, but the workshop, that's how I make my living. And yes, I have to charge because I have to cover my expenses, and I still have to be able to pay all my bills. But it's not about me making a lot of money. It is about me being accessible to you. And if you're someone who has a whole lot of dinar, and you're still sitting on the fence on this, how much of an investment would it be worthwhile for you to be able to travel to one of these workshops and be able to spend the registration fee to get your questions answered, and to know whether or not you may end up losing everything that you put into it if I'm right. To me, that if I was in, like what you said, some of those people that came to Louisville, if I was in those types of shoes, if I had spent thousands of dollars on currencies, and I'm now being told it's done and I'm not going to get anything for it, but I'm really not certain, I'd go to the source. I'd go to the source that's saying that and get every bit of information that I could. And you can do that because I will stay as long as necessary, as long as there are people asking questions. And we have lots of Q&A opportunities throughout the day. And you get much more information and background. And it's not just about the currencies. It's about the full big picture about who we are and why we got here, why this is happening to us, and how we get to work ourselves out, and why we're getting to participate in this, and where is all this gold that's backing all this up, and what is our responsibility with how we handle this money once we get it. I cover all those things in the workshops, and it's a very, very good full picture. I've had thousands and thousands of people attend, and I've had literally hundreds of people tell me it's one of the best things they've ever been to in their lives. So, but it's always your choice. I don't need to have a lot of people attend. I love them because I love the interaction, the live interaction with you that attend. But on that note, I only got about 5 or 6 seats left for Denver, and I only got about 15 left for Sedona. And then after that, I don't do one for another month, and after that, then I'll be in Orlando. And then after Orlando, I go to Europe, in Amsterdam. If you want to take a nice vacation in Amsterdam in late September, that's a nice time to be there. You can do that. And then the workshop is just one day. So, and all the information is on the registration page about the workshop. Go to the registration page on the website, and you can get all the information there that you need. I should say about 90% of it. So. Anything else before we go on to the next topic? Yeah. Yeah, and I can share more there than I can share verbally. I just cannot say on the internet, because once it's on the internet, you've totally lost control of it. You have no control over what people can do to what you have to say on the internet. Technology is out there that they could take this video, and then they can take my voice and the sounds of my voice and put it into a software that's available, and then make me be saying something entirely different that I didn't say, and it would look like I'm saying it. And good people, good programmers can do that. So they can totally manipulate anything that they want you to say. Oh, here's my buddy. He's visiting the cats here. So, yeah. Okay, anything else, Blanca, before we go on to the next program? The cat? He doesn't know what in the world dinar is, but that's okay. Yeah, he's moving on now. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I will, and I'm going to talk about that. What I first of all want to do, I want to touch again a little bit on the cryptocurrencies issue, and then I'll go into the Treasury Direct accounts, because I'm ready to bring Jason on to discuss that as well. What I've been saying is what on the cryptocurrencies issues, folks, what you do is your choice. Don't ask me about it. I don't have time to micromanage people who want to do involved in that. And I've referred people to Jason. Jason has had probably now 600 or 700 people I've referred to him. And he puts you on his list. This man is an expert. I trust him. I trust who he's working with and what he's doing. But the reason I want to say become aware of the cryptocurrency issue, because this is one of the methods that's going to be available for us to basically neuter the cabal through their central banking system. Here's an illustration. Let's say you have a bank and you have $100 million in deposits in your bank. Well, that means you have $100 million of loaning power, and that's where you make your money and your profits and have your control. If all of a sudden over a period of a few years half of that money is taken out of the banks and put into the cryptocurrency system, you've just taken away half of the profit power of a very corrupt central banking system. And that's why I think we're going to see this movement continuing, and people are going to understand that, and this is going to grow over a period of time. We have a place to put our money, that it's safe and it's secure, and it's not a part of the corrupt central banking system. They are basically being neutered through the power of the internet and this new blockchain technology that makes these cryptocurrencies systems very safe. So with that, then I'm going to go ahead and bring Jason in, if we're ready to do that. So, and I'll let him continue on that theme a little bit more because, right. But I'm going to go to him first, and then we'll do that. So, okay, here we are. Let's see, he's coming up. Oh, he's supposed to be coming up. There he is. Jason, buddy, there you are. Are you on the air? Hey, how you doing? Good. Anything new you want to add to us about the cryptocurrency issue? Colorado Springs. Yep. Yep, I am. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm here. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 and there were a couple companies out there that, yeah, there were a couple companies out there that were saying, they would double your Bitcoin in 90 days, and they did it for a very short period of time, and then they ran off with over $1 billion. Is what they did. They sucked all the money in and then took off with it, and that's happened on a couple companies that supposedly was a really quality company, and it was not. It was basically a deliberate scam to rip the people off of their money. So they're out there. But it's like I said, there's black hats and there's white hats out there in that whole industry. What's that? What'd you say? No. There might. Yeah. Huh. Good. Good. So, anything else then specifically on the cryptos? Yeah. Okay. All right. And folks, if you want to be on Jason's list of information, send me an email and then I forward that to him. He's not in a position yet to give out the email where you can go to him directly. So just send me the email and I will take it and then I will forward it on to him. And that's all that I do with it. I don't manage it, monitor it, or anything. I just forward the email and then I let him deal with what he's doing. So, okay. Anything else, bud? I guess we got a delay out there, okay? Alrighty, so what I'm going to do next, folks, before I go on and go to the callers, I'm going to talk just briefly about what is called the TDA accounts, the Treasury Direct accounts. Some of you have emailed me and asking me to comment on that. That's the new rage that's out there, and there's differences of opinions that are out there. There are these accounts called the Treasury Direct accounts that are monitored, again, by what I would call the shadow world of the government. And these are accounts that are based upon your birth certificates and your social security numbers, is what they are saying. And there was an individual that had found a way for you to access those accounts, and you could make payments to pay off your creditors. And supposedly it has worked for some. But there are others that are very, very credible that are telling you need to stay away from this thing. Some of them are saying it's an entrapment. There's credible people like Judge Anna, who is very respectable in what she has to write, saying it is a system that is designed to set you up to where they can control you down the road and can deny you what is called your full rights and access to who you are. And then there was another gentleman by the name of Winston Shrout that came out and wrote a report about where this money comes from, who it belongs to. It's a part of the global collateral accounts. This is my opinion. What I'm going to say, I don't want anything to do with it. Because first of all, it's run by a shadow world operation. Okay? And it's run predominantly by Dark Hat shadow world operation. And do you think, and yes, there was a loophole in how you could go in and access these accounts. If you think that these people that have been running this for decades are going to let you just come in and take your money and walk away, I don't think so. It's what I call you've pissed off the bear. Here's what I've learned, that there's a shadow world of law as well, of what is legal and what is not, what is illegal. There's the conventional world of law, of what is legal and what is illegal. And then there's the shadow world of law, of what is legal and what is illegal. And believe me, the illegal shadow world will come in and will play with you and destroy your life if you mess with them. I call him the bear. And the bear gets to do what the bear wants to do, because the bear operates in the privacy of the shadow world to pull off whatever they want. And if you piss off the bear, even though you may think what you did was legal in the conventional world, the bear will come in and find a way to mess with you, i.e. bring charges against you and put you in jail. And that's already happened to people who have used these TDA accounts. There was a gentleman that used the account to pay off a motorhome, and the next thing you knew, he found that he had the police knocking on his door, arresting him for false charges, and they could put him away. They put him in jail, and for a false, trumped-up charge. When there are hundreds of thousands, I don't want to say hundreds of thousands, when there are tens of thousands of pages of law in the U.S. Code, don't you think they can find something to bring against you if they really want to? Those are the pros. If you want to mess with the bear, if you think you're more powerful than the bear, that's your choice. And the bear may let you get by, you know, in the beginning. I did have an email from a gentleman who says, it worked for me and I paid off my $800 on my credit card. Well, fine, because right now the $800 is not a threat to the bear. But the couple $100,000 of the motor home was. And sooner or later the bear remembers who you are and what you did. And that bear may come after you. And don't say that it's not happening, because folks, it is happening. I'm getting reports on both sides. Yes, some people are saying it's legit and it's real. Well, it may very well have been that they found a loophole in the law that allowed them to do this. And the bear isn't monitoring every single individual that's doing it, but they are messing with some of them. And so you're taking the risk that you may have the bear come after you. And that bear could be the IRS, that bear could be the federal government, that bear could be the U.S. Treasury, that bear could be Homeland Security, that bear could be a local sheriff because the local bank was told to come after you. So you just don't know. But that's why I don't touch it. It's not clean and clear yet. It's not obviously out there in the open. And why would I even, this is just me personally, why would I even want to mess with that when I know what's coming? So it's not even, you know, this would, what they could do for me would be peanuts in contrast to what I have coming and what I know. So, but the TDA accounts, folks, they're very controversial. There's some people that think they're absolutely right, but remember, the people in my estimation that think they're absolutely right are the people that think they can beat the legal system in the shadow world. The legal system in the shadow world are the most powerful legal people out there. I wouldn't want to mess with them. I wouldn't want to fight them. And as I said, you could have the IRS coming after you. Remember, when the IRS comes after you, you are guilty until proven innocent. And the only way you get out of that is that you have to take them to court. And then when you take them to court, the burden of proof shifts. Now, instead of you being guilty until proven innocent, if you take them to court, the IRS, you are innocent until proven guilty by them. So, but that might be what you're asking for. So that's why I am saying whatever you want to do on TDA accounts, that's up to you. There's a lot of controversy out there that are both sides. I wouldn't touch it. That's me. Okay? All right. I'm going to go on to callers. First one I'm going to go to is a gentleman by the name of Jake from area code 702. Jake, you're on the air. What can I help you with tonight? I've got real-world paymasters that have never ever said this before, and they've never been in this position to say that they have been notified by the banks and by the buyers, get ready, the money's coming. We've never been to that position ever before. I've got the brokers that are some of the, not just in Reno, other brokers, but the largest brokers in the world, that are being told it could happen tomorrow. Now, and that is not a joke. That is literally, yes, it could happen tomorrow. But they don't know the full story. They don't know why it continues to go out. But all of them are saying, we have never, ever been this far along before. So yes, we say, well, we're right at the door. Well, that could have 1,000 different shades of what it means. Okay? And what I'm saying is that when I use the term that we're right at the door, the shades of color that's coming out of it are more strong and more bold and more bright than they've ever been. That's the way I can say it. Does that make sense? They don't. They don't pay for it. That's the point. These currencies are just being used as vehicles to move the money around the world to improve the global economy. Now, I can go into some details about why the dinar and why the Vietnamese dong. Those are the two countries that the United States went to war with. You go back to the original Bretton Woods Agreement just prior to World War II, when they came out of that, you have to look at how is it that the two, quote, enemies of the Western world, i.e. Germany and Japan, their countries were totally rebuilt in a very rapid fashion, very quickly. Where did all that money come from? Because they didn't have it. It came from the intention of the Bretton Woods Agreement. It came from the white hats of the shadow world that basically said it wasn't necessarily their fault of this issue, and they wanted to improve their economies and put them back onto stability. That is why also, in my opinion, why they have chosen to use the dinar, and i.e. the dong, because those are the two countries the United States went to war with, and they've never been rebuilt from the outside. All the rebuilding has had to come from the inside, and they paid a pretty heavy price at the cost of war. And we haven't had what you would call benevolent people step in and to basically help them through something that was not. When I say that, it's the citizens, the everyday citizens that suffered from being in a war conflict. And this is a method that, yes, they do benefit from some of this because their currency is going to have an appreciated rate, but they're not paying for it. It's coming from, remember, the elders, grandfathers, dragon families, and the trading platforms. That's what's paying for this, and they're just using those currencies as a vehicle. That's all that it is. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with what is going on politically inside either one of those countries. Does that make sense? No, because you're assuming that all of it is going to come in to the country immediately and it's going to be spendable right away, and that is not the case. The vast majority of all these contracts have what is called the 20/80 principle. The people, the end seller, only the individual like you and me, only gets to keep 20%, and 80% is put into an escrow account to be given away into humanitarian aid projects around the world. The vast majority of the contracts require that. Secondly, it doesn't necessarily, they may put a limit to how much money you're going to get to have in your own personal account, and above that, they may not pay you immediately. They may pay you on structured payouts over a number of years. They may give you different financial instruments that will mature over a period of time. It doesn't necessarily mean all that money is going to be immediately spendable. Okay? Yeah. We don't know, and we don't know the details. Every contract has been different, but there are some contracts they have been told to plan on the fact that this is not all going to be spendable right away. Okay. Every contract's different. Right. Yeah, because see, your contract can be with the broker. That's true, because see, your contract may be with the broker, but the buyer is not honoring the broker's contract with you. And the buyer is going to come down and say, you want this money? These are the stipulations. And then the broker has to come back to you and say, yeah, sorry, I have no control. I am a broker. I'm not a buyer. And so they may have to say, if you want this money, you have to agree to this new contract. There's a possibility that might happen in some contracts. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, I've obviously got a delay here tonight, so yep, bye-bye. Okay, so I'm going to go now to the next caller. It's his name is William from area code 949. It's coming up. And William, you're on the air. What can I help you with tonight? Yes. Well, I think well, first of all, it's a changing scenario. It's not the same as it was 2 years ago, okay? And it could be that it ended up that the dinar was so overprinted that they just don't want to touch it anymore because they don't know what's clean and what's not, and they don't even want to mess with it. They don't want to mess with the fact that probably about 20 to 30% of the loose dinar out there is counterfeit, and they have to run it through all these Delarue machines, and then they have to go back to the broker who Schmidt says, well, 20% of yours isn't good, and then the broker has to go back to all the people and find out, okay, this is what we got to do. You all of you collectively just lost 20%, because see, they can't trace it back because nobody tracks serial numbers of where it came from. Then you have the possibility they just don't want to mess with the boxes because there's so many of them that are turning up to be fraud. It's an absolute pain in the butt for them to deal with the dinar, so they don't want to mess with it anymore. They don't need to. And it's not a tradable currency, and the dong is. And the dong has not been overprinted. It is not. It's controlled. It's controlled in its price, and it's controlled by how much is being printed. And it is a good, clean currency that is tradable on the open foreign exchange market. That's why I can say why they're dealing with that, not the others. They don't use it for anything. They don't use it for nothing. It's just a vehicle to move money. It's all that it is. After they receive it, I'm told it gets burnt up. They need to have a legal mechanism to be able to legally move money to expand the global economy where individuals chose to be a part of this without them pre-selecting who gets to participate and who doesn't. So what they're doing is they're honoring the fact that there were people that chose to get involved and to educate themselves and listen to this and buy the appropriate currency, and that is nothing more than a vehicle that they are choosing to move money around the world to expand the global economy. That's all it is, nothing more. But they had to do it in a legal manner. So they had to have a legal form of an exchange, and they chose to use these currencies to do that. See? Yeah. I think it'll keep on, as long as they're willing to believe that they're going to get some money for it, in spite of the fact that there will be tens of thousands of us that will have been paid in the first round. There will be, millions of boxes that will have been exchanged, and that they can't, and they will face into the fact that can they find a buyer, can they find a broker, and after we've long been paid and they haven't gotten their 800 numbers, then maybe they'll start to wake up to what they really stepped into. But there's going to be some of these people that are going to believe this till the end, thinking that they're going to get their dinar. And it could be that Iraq just says goodbye to the 25,000 note, comes out with a new currency, a new denomination, and just says we ain't taking anything. And maybe that will finally wake them up. People believe this for various reasons. There's various reasons why people believe what I call the fantasy. And most of it, I did cover this on a couple programs ago. It's because data and information like this is an addiction. It's just as addictive as any drug. It stimulates the pleasure part of the brain the same way that drugs do. So people get caught up into this, almost into an addictive state of this data and this information and this hope that I'm going to get something for it, and they don't dare. They're caught into an addiction, and when you're in an addiction, it's very difficult for you to listen to the rational argument why it doesn't make sense. When you're in an addiction, the fact that you can take in 100 trillion Zim note and get 100 trillion US dollars for it gets you all excited, even though it's absolutely crazy, and that addiction keeps you from being rational of seeing that it's absolutely crazy. In their minds, it's not. That's the addictive state. The second issue is this deep fear of being wrong. They don't want to admit that they've been wrong. It's very painful and fearful to admit that they might have been wrong. It's very painful to admit that they might have spent $10,000, $50,000 on a currency that they're not going to get anything for, so they refuse to give up. And that's why people keep believing this stuff. And right now, there's more than 10,000 out there that are believing that, and that's why I keep coming back with this. Some people are saying, why are you doing this? You're just repeating yourself. You already covered this in your last 2 and 3 programs. Well, as long as I know that there's thousands of people out there that are still believing it, and I'm getting emails that are showing, lots of emails that are showing they're still believing it, I'm going to a certain degree, repeat it, because sometimes you got to hit them over the head with the 2x4 4 times before they wake up. And I want to help the folks. If my information's correct, I hope I'm waking them up. I would love to be wrong, but I've given you an out if I am, and your out is to purchase dong and not dinar, because you can at least get your money back. And I look at the probability factors. The probability factors is 90 to 95%. Your dinar's done. You ain't going to get anything for it if you're still holding on to it. That's the probability factor. So, and it's just the opposite probability. I'm saying it's just the opposite probability that you will get. Go ahead. possibly. You know, people make their choices of when they're willing to believe it. And there's all kinds of different circumstances or situations in each individual's life about when they wake up. But it is about a process of waking up. And that might be the final straw when Iraq says, you got 60 days and that's it. You know. And there wasn't any 800 numbers. And they got to somehow get it to Iraq to get their money because there's no bank or processing center. William, let me say this because I forgot to cover this tonight. The reason why banks are not going to be involved in the 800 number system is because banks all across the country have sent out official memos to tens of thousands of bank employees that they are never ever going to be involved in these currency exchanges of the dinar and the dong and the zim. And so these employees have been officially notified from top. Now imagine if they decide to get involved and help facilitate the exchange. You've now got tens of thousands of people bringing a class action lawsuit against their employers for flat out lying to them when they could have been involved and they chose not to. I mean, you're talking a class action lawsuit if they're involved in the 800 number system. Okay, I got to let you go. I've been notified I got 90 seconds left on the program. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. Okay, folks. What I was hearing on the program tonight that there was a delay on the radio. Sorry about that. I don't know why that was here. But I also was hearing that people could hear both of us on the radio, but people on the YouTube couldn't. And I'm also hearing that the YouTube had the video feed had kind of locked up now and then. So I'll take a look at it, but I may not be posting the YouTube feed tonight. So, okay, Blanca, you got about 20 seconds. Any last second comments, I should say? Are you there? Hello, hello. Are you there, Blanca? There you are. Oh, I know. Well, it says I've got 22 seconds. I've got 22 seconds left. Anything you want to share? We got a delay tonight. That's weird. Yep. Okay. Well, we'll see you next week. Okay? All right. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.